Please join me in welcoming to the stage Sterlin Harjo.
Hello. I feel like this is a comedy show all of a sudden. So I just flew in. No, thank you so much. Thanks to the original people of this land, the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe people, for allowing us to be here this day. Yeah, you know, I put a lot of love into this show. Dennis and Tio over here, love you both. In the show and a director on the show. Was literally here. I'm walking around like I'm a comedian. It's strange, so weird. There should be a podium. And I'll just put my arm on you. And I was here like 10 years ago for a film that I made for $120,000. Some say $150,000. So it's just crazy. There was like 20 people in the audience, so this is rad. It feels very sold out. But yeah, this is a story that was inspired by Tulsa and friends of mine and family. And, you know, after Reservation Dogs, I met this guy, Ethan Hawke, on the show, and we just started dreaming about things. Actually, I didn't meet him. We were writing together before that, but then he worked on Reservation Dogs, and we just came up with this. I pitched him this story, and he said, I love it. Let's do it. Come say hi, Ethan.
I have a lot of hairspray in my hair, and I kind of don't know who I am when that happens.
But he's so much better at this than me.
First of all, this is the 50th anniversary of your incredible film festival. We want to talk to you long afterwards. We want to let this start. This guy is the real thing, and I can't wait for you to see this show.
Love you, Graham Greene, as well, who's also at our show. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Please welcome to the stage Sterlin Harjo and Ethan Hawke.
Wow. Cool.
So
we're talking about how much it's crazy to see it on a big screen. There's stuff that I didn't know was in there.
what did you notice seeing it on the big screen that you didn't notice?
I mean, some of it you don't want to know, but there was a Band-Aid that we didn't.
Yeah, the guy burns my neck, in the first scene, and I spent all this time every day wearing a Band-Aid on my neck. But then on a small screen, you don't even see it. But here we did, and I felt glad for the attention to detail. So, but it's not important.
TIFF, bringing Band-Aids to the big screen. Sterlin, can you talk a little bit about how this series came to be, the origin of the idea and the subject?
Yeah, so I worked for a magazine called This Land Press years ago. And, it was like, I was an independent filmmaker. Like I said, I had a $100,000 film that I brought here. Wasn't making money, and there was it felt like there was no way to make money in the States for what I wanted to do, and I was living in Oklahoma. So I started working for this magazine, and this magazine was like this utopia of like creativity, where they allowed me to make documentaries about Oklahoma and Tulsa. It could be whatever I wanted. And it was a very free environment. We had so much fun, friends of mine. And then there was a guy there who was a journalist who I started doing a series with called Tulsa Public Secrets. His name's Leroy Chapman. And it was just he had a white van. He would say, "You're doing it wrong" a lot. And he was brilliant. He knew Tulsa inside and out. And I made these videos. I rode shotgun, and I made these videos with him. And he passed away. And I just kind of missed what he represented, like this spirit, which was kind of a thorn in the side of the establishment back home in Tulsa and in Oklahoma in general. And I started writing this as a feature, and it was just sort of it was sort of a homage, I guess, to my friend. And then I didn't end up doing it. It was just kind of too soon. My friend had passed, and it was just too close. And then I was making Res Dogs, and that's that show, and that was an amazing experience. And I was like, what else do I want to do? And I kind of got sick of like middle of America shitty TV shows that are really popular. I won't mention any names, but I was just like, that's not what I see, like where I'm from, you know. And you know, where I'm from, it feels like there's an appreciation for art. I mean, like, you know, whether you're from the South or the middle of the country, I mean, there's so much art that comes out of those areas in America. I mean, you know, like jazz and blues and, you know, Flannery O'Connor and like just amazing literature. And it's something that I wanted to celebrate. And I decided to try to show the world, like if Reservation Dogs was showing rural Oklahoma and my love for it, this was like, how do I show what I love about the city? And this character, Lee, you know, inspired by my friend, was just kind of the perfect vehicle for a noir set in Tulsa. So that's really where it came from. Then there was Ethan Hawke. You know, he and I had been writing together, and before we worked on Res Dogs together. And it was an adaptation of for years he had tried to get the story of Geronimo and the Apache Wars. He wrote a script, and Hollywood wouldn't make it because it was about the native people instead of, you know, Matt Damon or whatever, you know. And and so literally he couldn't get it made, so he turned it into a graphic novel. A mutual friend of ours, Martin Sinsmeyer, introduced me to the great actor Martin Sinsmeyer introduced me to the book Inde, and I read it, and I just was like, this is like fascinating. And then I learned more about Geronimo, and I approached him at the Chateau Marmont for a Hollywood story, and we had a meeting, and I pitched him the idea of my adaptation, and he loved it, and then we wrote it together. So we had known each other, and then we worked on, and he's like such a nice guy, and he wrote me during Reservation Dogs, like, hey, I love the show. If there's anything, yeah, I'd love to be in it. If you ever have a part, I was like, I'll write you one right now. And so wrote him as Alora's dad. And then, you know, we're talking after, I don't remember when it was, but you know, I started writing this pilot, and I told him the idea, and I sent him the script, lying to him, saying, I just want you to, like, give me notes. And then he was like, man, I'd love to play Lee. And that was, like, all I needed to hear. And I was like, well, let me adjust everything and my whole future just so we can do the show together. And that's sort of what happened in a nutshell, in a very long nutshell.
And not to force you to gush over each other, but Ethan, what was it about Sterlin that made you want to take on this character of Lee and work with him and such an exciting project?
There's a thing, this will get into the mystic of it all. We had this good friend, Martin, in common, who had introduced us, and Martin had sent me Miko, said, I really think you should meet this guy. The movie's brilliant. And I was staying at the Chateau Marmont, and Sterlin came by. And do you ever have that feeling when you make eye contact with somebody and you feel like, oh, I know this person. Mm-hmm. Like I'm gonna know them, or I do know them. And I never looked back. I was like, whatever this guy wants to do, I want to do it. You know, I knew he was serious. We had more than that as a mutual friend, and I knew what a serious artist was, and I had seen his work. But I also just immediately said, I want to write something with you. I want to do something with you. And this is years before Reservation Dogs. And then as the show came out, my whole attitude about what could happen on television changed. Because I started having this thought that, well, if the French New Wave was happening today, where would it be happening? It wouldn't happen in the same way that it happened then with all those guys. And it might be happening on television. And there's something deeply cinematic about that show that changed my attitude. And, you know, hats off to FX for producing it and putting it out to the world, because they could have not. It was very much, it had voice. It's that weird thing, you know, when you see She's Gotta Have It, or you see Slacker, or you see Mean Streets or something, you're like, whoa, what is that? This is a new voice on the landscape. And I felt that way watching Rizzo. I already knew you, but I was like, wow, check this guy out. I've never seen anything like this before. Is everything okay? Oh, you're taking a picture of me.
By the way, I love Matt Damon. By the way, I was just, it was about white guys. It wasn't about Geronimo.
I was gonna say that too. It's like, wait, you love Matt Damon. I was like lucky to get this part from him, and I'm glad that he didn't come down to Res Dogs. Jesus, I wouldn't be here. But so I just had this feeling, and I didn't know how it would manifest. I was happy, and I went down to do Reservation Dogs, and he didn't just like rap. I was expecting a little cameo. He wrote me a proper part, really complicated, interesting role, and I hadn't had that much fun on a set since Boyhood. Where I felt like there was a band playing, and I was being asked to, play percussion in this pre-existing band, and they were having so much fun, and they were serious. That combination of like, I have something to say, and why don't we have a great time while we say it? The crew was fantastic. The energy, the supporting cast. I was like, oh, that's why this show is so good. These guys are having a ball, and
It really is like a family. Like
it felt like that.
Shout out to Dylan Brody right there.
Yeah, Dylan, and there was a great energy around. Let's make something from every department, and that's not normal. And that's the only time I'd come in contact with that was in Austin with Rick. Where you felt like, oh wow, there's a thing happening here that's beyond an individual. And Sterlin and Rick have that in common, which is that they're great supporters of other artists. Even the main character that inspired you to do that, he was a great champion of other people, and you picked that, and you're a champion of other people. And so there's my memory blurs about how it all happened, but it is true. He sent me the script because we had been writing together, so it kind of made sense. I got the script. He says, hey, I'm thinking about this in my new show. Do you have any notes on this? Could this work? And I'm reading the script, and I'm like, I can play this fucking part. Why is he not offering me this part? And I didn't want to be presumptuous, but I wrote him back. I said, this script's really good, and if I played that part, it'd be really good. And then it was on.
Smart move, Sterlin.
I'd met Ethan. I loved Boyhood so much, and I just feel like, it sounds cheesy, like we are just kind of gassing each other up, but I did feel like I was going to work with him for a long time. Like I knew I was. And then I ran into him at the Denver airport, and I was just like, looked over, and Ethan Hawke's walking beside me. And I was like, I have to say something. I just finished watching Boyhood, and it had such a big effect on me. And I was just like, man, I loved Boyhood. And thankfully, he wasn't like, fucking leave me alone. Buzz off,
I'm on the phone.
Yeah, exactly. That's what
Ethan was talking about the kind of community that you create on set, and I want to talk a little bit about that, this idea of how important community is to you. You have such an incredible supporting cast that you've brought together, and there's more people that we have not seen yet that are coming to the screen that I think audiences will be really excited to see in this series. Can you talk about bringing that community together and how much that means to you?
I just feel like I grew up, like it's such a large family and community that everywhere I go, I sort of feel like I create that, because I feel like as I've gotten older and I've seen that family leave and pass away slowly through the years, I just have this need to keep creating community everywhere I go. And that happens with the crew that I work with, or a family that we work with in Tulsa. It happens in pockets everywhere. I mean, like Tio and Dennis and Jason, everybody. We kind of had this family in Toronto at Imaginative as well, and and then there's Santa Fe, and then there's New York, and then there's these little pockets, and then I had the 1491's comedy group, and it's just like trying to kind of, I think, create my childhood. So, which I don't even want to unpack that and why, but there was, Res Dogs is an ensemble, and what I love about this show is it's also an ensemble. Lee really is driving the story, but it's just like this great world around him that, for me, shows you the beauty and the quirkiness and the humor of Tulsa and Oklahoma. but also it's like a great noir setup. You know, I mean, you just have these. I mean, I think noir works great when you have someone at the center, and they have all of these outlets of people in the community that they can go to and get information from and help, and get help with, and it just works that way. And I'm excited. I mean, the cast is amazing, and like, thank you FX for giving me. I didn't say this in my intro, I forgot to, but thank you FX for, letting me make Res Dogs and trusting me, and Taika Waititi, my friend, sort of trusting me to do that, because I wouldn't have got to make this show without that. Like, all of these actors came in a way, other than Ethan, came in a way like because they were fans of Res Dogs, and we're excited to see what was happening next. So yeah, pretty great.
There was in the spirit of community, you did me a great service, and I think the show a great service by there was. In one of the coming episodes, Peter Dinklage is kind of the lead of episode 5, I guess, and he and I had a theater company, kind of like our version of 1491. Like what that was for us in the early '90s, and so I got to invite and bring Peter into this party, and we got to work together in a way that we hadn't since our early 20s, and we got to do it with the support of FX and something people are going to be able to see, not just some little 76-seat house. We got to party together, and Peter left Tulsa with the same feeling that I was like, see, like, isn't this fun? He's like, yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, every actor that would come in, Kyle, Peter, Ethan, to a larger degree, but everyone was just like, I remember one time we were sitting in a diner. This is in Res Dogs, and I had my friend Jacob Tovar. He was like in there with his guitar, and he's a country singer, and he's playing music, literally playing songs live while we are setting up shots and everything. And Ethan filmed it with his camera, was just filming it, and he sent it to Maya, his daughter, and was just kind of saying, look, like, what we do can be fun, And that's amazing because, I don't know, like, I just, all we do in Tulsa is like what our, grandmas taught us, which is just be nice. And sometimes I'm like, what are other people doing on these sets? And I think that the culture, though, is truly changing, and it should be changing because it doesn't have to be miserable. And I don't think great art gets made through misery. I mean, some of it does, but for the most part, I don't want to be miserable while I'm making. It's hard enough. Let's have a good time, and that's what we do. And it's just great. It's just so great to hear these actors. Everyone that's leaving just. Kyle standing up and saying, this doesn't happen everywhere, and just thanking us. And in a lot of ways, we are this hungry group of young artists in Tulsa. I mean, there's people that are on the crew that I literally were serving me coffee and a barista that I would go to and say, what are you doing? We're about to shoot a show. Like, you're into photography, right? Yeah. You want to work on the show? Yeah, I'll quit tomorrow. And then, I bring them over, and, that's kind of the spirit of how we do it. And it's just an amazing way to work. So, yeah.
And I don't know how to describe it when you watch the series, but that community and that energy in making the series feels like it comes across on screen.
Yeah, I think the love comes through,
Films have subconscious. You feel them. And sometimes misery can create an interesting subconscious, too.
Right.
But Sterlin's energy is pervasive because you're confident enough. You know your own voice well enough to empower other people, to invite their creativity. The reason why Kyle had a great time is he contributed. Peter contributed. The people who are doing props are contributing to the quality of the show because you're confident enough to invite in other people's creativity and to trust them and know that you can lead them. And a lot of people are just scared.
You like the show, though, right? I mean, it's hard to tell. I was ducking into my seat the whole time. I don't do this well. I couldn't I'm a good showrunner. I run a good set. Everyone's great and happy. This is the job to me, coming out and showing you something and trying to do an interview. That's the job for me. The rest of it's. Come on the set, hang out with me. It's a lot of fun.
Wow. You were at TIFF, so this is a safe space. Yeah. And the TIFF community. Actually, big shout out to Teo and Cody Lightning, both TIFF talent alumni that have come
Cody,
through.
man, it's so crazy. What's funny is, if any of you, well, I'm sure none of you, but maybe a few, Some of the imaginative crew saw my film, Four Sheets to the Wind, starring Cody Lightning as a young man. I think he was 19 at the time. It was all shot. 90% of it was shot on the same block. The diner that we used was the same diner. It was not the same. It was the building we turned into the diner. We turned it into a diner again, where Lee lives above the bookstore, and the bookstore and everything is all on the same block that we shot Four Sheets to the Wind. It just worked out that way. And, like I filmed my first sex scene upstairs, and then he's like, now it's his house above the bookstore. It's just a trippy block. For some reason, I keep going back to this block.
You were talking about real life inspirations of your friend and Leroy. What were some of the either on screen or literary inspirations you had when making it, and maybe some of the films in the background?
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole series going on right now in Tulsa of the influences of this for this show, and it's it's like Chinatown, obviously, and but the big one for me was The Long Goodbye. Robert Altman's The Long Goodbye. I just love that movie. I sort of want to live in that movie, and it's so strange how that movie moves, and it's so different how scenes, like characters interact with each other, and it's just, there's this moment that's very Long Goodbye, and it's when Lee's coming out of the diner and he's walking and he gives the sandwich to the guy, and then he's like, and then the guy at the record store comes out and he's like, Lee, bring back my junior camera. He goes, yeah, man, I will. And he's just kind of like, Lee's just sort of mumbling to himself through the thing. That feels like The Long Goodbye to me. Also the Drowning Pool, and Night Moves, and Something Wild is always there for me. Like that's one of my favorites, we watched, I don't know, anything else that you think of? I mean, art, books. Flannery O'Connor's always
Jim
an influence,
Thompson.
which is like Jim Thompson, any sort of crime novels, Southern Gothic, I'm all about. It's funny because with Reservation Dogs, we sort of moved into different genres as the season went, and each episode would sort of be painted in a different sort of medium. It'd be like, with Dio and Dennis, obviously the boarding school episode, The Dear Lady, and that was sort of a 70s horror, and then you would have a heist episode or whatever.
You have your Dazed episode.
Dazed and Confused episode, what I realized is that I love genre, like whereas before I would just make something where nothing happens, which is great. I could do that all day, but I was like, oh, like I like genre, like I like hanging that stuff on something, and so this was sort of that exercise manifested. It's like I want to make a noir in Tulsa.
Very cool. Ethan, we see Lee grappling with balancing being a father and all these kind of like professional responsibilities of a true historian. As a father yourself, did you feel a connection to this kind of balancing act that he's playing with his daughter throughout this series?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's where the humanity of it lives. It's really fun to watch it with you guys today and feel that it's strange. As you watch the whole show, that's where you really see Lee. All of us are trying to balance our relationship to ourselves, our relationship to our family, and our relationship to our vocation, right? I mean, those are the three prongs of our life that we're trying to balance. And if you only see one of those, the humanity of it is lost. And what I love about this character and what I love about this series is the canvas size. That we get to see all three of those things in relationship to each other, and that lets me create a three-dimensional character. A lot of times you're constrained because they're really just trying to show one aspect of the self. And anybody's in a film, like your dad spends most of his day at work, and how he treats you has to do with how work is going. But if his relationship with you sucks, it undermines his. It's all connected, and there's something about the scene, we both are dads and trying to be passionate at our vocation, and that balance is hard. it's hard to be the person you want to be in all aspects of your life, and you see it in this episode, and that's pretty much the energy. I'm really, really happy. Sterlin's done an amazing job. If you keep watching, it's really, it just gets, the water just gets deeper and deeper. And by the end, I find it really powerful.
Yeah, Ethan and I talked a lot about being dads, and we've met each other's kids. It's like, and the kids were on set. I mean, Ethan moved his whole family to Tulsa to make this. They were in school, like, luckily it went decent. But yeah, I think that there was another movie that we watched called The Setup. It's old noir, and it's a boxing. And the idea was like, what if, he kind of can't quit boxing. Like he could like walk away with the money, but he won't do the setup, and he's kind of like killing himself. He won't walk away. And it was like, well, we all have these obsessions, and what if you can't walk away from them, but you're really trying your best to be a dad while you're doing it, And I feel like in a lot of ways that was me in filmmaking. I didn't know if I was ever going to make a living, and I was constantly trying to like justify why I was doing it, and yeah, I mean, I think that that's the dance of the whole show, is watching Lee balance that. I think I invented a word, truth story, and I'm pretty sure, I don't think it's ever been. Y'all should start hashtag truth storying out there and spread it,
I think you're right. I have one more question.
Doesn't really roll off the tongue, though, does it?
No, I already tripped over it. I have one last question for Sterlin, then I'm going to throw it to the audience for some questions. So here at TIFF Lightbox, we're just steps away from Canadian icon Graham Greene star on the Canadian Walk of Fame. With Graham's passing earlier this week, I'm sure you've been asked so many questions about it. I was just hoping you could share a memory of your experience working with him.
I mean, it's just, you just watch a legend work, like Graham has this intensity and this softness as well, and he can be vulnerable, and he allows himself to be that way. And he's just an amazing actor to watch, but also just, every little thing. If you ever hear him do like a funny quip, it's him. Like he's so good at like, kind of like, he was so good at like shit talking, like right after the scene, like right after the line's done, he'd add something, and and it was just, to have all of, in Reservation Dogs in the last episode, to have all of those kind of people that paved the way for younger generations there. Just, I can't even wrap my head around it. I'm still processing having all of them together. So having Graham, this is one of his last projects he's in, is this show. And, he came and, I felt like Graham maybe had been a little, I was a little worried, health-wise. Like I didn't know how things were. But then he showed up and was just like, and then I was like, oh, and then the choices that he did. I can't ruin anything for you in this show, but the choices that he made in this show are amazing. I'll tell this one story where, it was just fun to sit around and talk to Graham about everything. It's like Keith David, talking to him about things that he's been in and people that he knew. But he had his hat cocked, like in this show later you'll see. But he has his hat cocked off to the side, it's a ball cap, right? And he just like was rocking it like that the whole time. And I thought maybe it was just like that was what he was going to do before the camera rolled and he was going to start. And someone asked him like, and I was there. They were like, "Are you gonna straighten your hat? Your hat's a little crooked." He goes, "Oh no." I was like, "Oh, keep it like that." I was like, "Oh, it's a choice." He's like, "Yeah. Otherwise, the lighting guys won't be able to do their job." Like covering his, like he was thinking about the lighting and covering the shadow, covering his eye. So he just rocks it like that the whole time. And it was like, obviously, you amateurs. But he was great, man. I just, he's such a legend, and we were all blessed to be able to work with him. And what he did with Maximus and Reservation Dogs, the sensitivity that he brought to a person struggling with mental health and a history of mental health and the sensitivity that he brought to that. You know, there's one note ways of doing that character, and he did it in a way that was so complex and beautiful and heartbreaking. And he does the same thing on this show with the character that he plays.
He couldn't help but do it. He can't help but play three notes at the same time, and that's why it's so captivating to watch. I felt so blessed. It does. I don't know him as well as you did. When he left set, he seemed so healthy and vibrant. I was really heartbroken to hear that news. His mind was so lucid and funny.
Yeah, once he got to set, any concerns of health, because there was something about traveling, you know, that I was worried about. Once he got there, though, I was like, oh,
he was on
he's just
fire.
rocking.
He was so fun and making up lines.
And Dennis, and you know, it sucks because I can't like tell you, but it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun working.
Thank you for
with
sharing,
Graham.
guys.
What a beautiful, and we were blessed to have him.
Thank you for sharing. I'm going to go throw it to the audience for some questions. I see a question right here.
Yeah, I have to ask both Mr. Hawke and I'm sorry.
Harjo.
Yes.
I'm less famous. It's okay. It's fine. Barely.
I have to ask. With your use of quirky characters and Western setting mixed in with noir, did you take any inspiration from the Coen brothers and Mr. Hawke? I was just thinking, I kind of got some vibes of the dude from The Big Lebowski.
Yeah, I mean, you can't not take from the Coen brothers. And they took from everyone we're taking from as well. Like, it is a conversation through cinema, I think, that is happening, and the Coen brothers are a part of that. And I mean, you know, anytime that you also do crime and funny and drama at the same time, you know, you're in Coen brother territory. You know, and I just love, you know, obviously we watched The Big Lebowski, like that was, you know, and Inherent Vice, and any sort of, you know, noir, funny noir, stoner noir. You know, that we were also watching those movies as well. So those were for sure influences.
And you know, for me, when Dead Poets Society came out, I was
Heard of it?
I was 18 years old when it came out, and I had this thought to myself, is like, all right, who was a child actor that really kept growing? And I read somewhere that that Jeff Bridges was 19 or 18 when The Last Picture Show came out, and that's probably still one of my all-time favorite movies. And so from the time I've been like 18 forward, I've watched everything he's done. He just keeps growing. He just keeps being himself in the present moment that he's in. And he's been a real inspiration for my whole life, not just for everything. His ability to do romance, comedy, horror. He does, you know, he plays inside every genre. He's always working with good directors. And he's hysterical in Starman. He can be the Fisher King. He's intense and brilliant. So he's been a North Star for me since I started acting.
He was a fan of Res Dogs, which I loved. One day we were all at an award show, and he saw cheese across the room, and he yelled, "Cheese!" Like, gave him a hug, which I thought was great.
All right, we have another question over here.
I just don't know what to do. You know, like I'm a filmmaker that started doing TV. I had to call my friend when I became a showrunner, who's a showrunner, and ask her, am I supposed to be having meetings? Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, what does a showrunner do? Like, I had to Google showrunning. Like, what is that? So I was a filmmaker that found my way into TV, and TV's been very good to me. FX has been a great place. It reminds me, and it reminds me of filmmaking in the 70s, when the creative leaders had sort of control over stories that they were telling. I've been lucky enough to make 2 original shows, which is kind of crazy, in a time when everything's based on something or whatever. They trusted me with making 2 original shows, which is awesome. I only know how to do one thing. It's just making films, Thank you. I only know how to do one thing, which is telling a story and making films. I don't know how to do it differently, I would love to have more time than TV gives me. It's insane. But turns out making $100,000, it keeps going lower. I don't know if y'all have noticed that. It went from 150 to 125 to 110 to now 100. Making $100,000 shows, being a writer and director of $100,000 movies, totally trained me to be a FX showrunner. Because it's fast. You have to make stuff fast. So I treat it like I would treat everything, I think. Yeah.
Speaking of FX, you can see The Lowdown on FX on September 23rd, and it premieres on Disney Plus in Canada on September 24th. Please join me in thanking Ethan Hawke and
Thank you,
Sterlin
guys.
Harjo.
Great to be here.